Well, hello everybody. It's Simon Halliday here. Another edition of Hallers Playbook coming your way, and it just seems to go on and on, doesn't it? The drama in sport this year with South Africa crowned champions in the Rugby Championship, the Women's Cricket World Cup in session right now, highly relevant to the guests we've got today. We're still reflecting in the glory of the great win of the Ryder Cup. And plenty more to come. So before I come on and introduce our guest, I just want to say thank you to Mass Group Multi-Asset Solutions, covering foreign exchange, gold. I mean, who hasn't seen the way that the gold price is moving at the moment? Big players in that marketplace, also in fund strategy and digital assets. So thank you to Mass for sponsoring this podcast. And I'm going to want to introduce Graham Gooch to OBE, to welcome Graham. And before I sort of bring you in and just we get going, those of you who don't know, and you should know, Graham is the all-time highest run scorer in English cricket, in world cricket. And I don't know the exact number. I think it's 67,000 runs, but Graham might tell us exactly. And I doubt that will ever be surpassed. He also, because it's all about resilience, as my 8-year-old son found out when he was out first ball the other day, you can start from the bottom. And Graham started his test career with a pair of big fat zeros. No doubt we'll talk through that. But he also does a huge amount of work for the PCA and for his own foundation, which we'll come on to. So, first of all, Graham, welcome. And you're on the edge of the PCA Awards dinner. So very relevant to have a chat with you. But how's the summer been so far, cricket wise, from your angle, someone with so much experience on the field and off the field as a former England cricket coach? How's it been, do you think, this summer?
I think firstly, it's a delight to be on your podcast and to be speaking to you about sport in general, but obviously cricket. It's been a great summer for English cricket. One, I don't think we've had so many hours of sunshine that I can remember since 1976. It was a fantastic summer for weather, for cricket. England had a very tense, England men that is, had a very tense series against India, which ended up as a 2-all with England losing the last game at the Oval when they probably should have won. They threw it away. They had the game in the palm of their hand. But there was lots of intrigue, bit of needle in the game, bit of tension in some of the Test matches. Some words were exchanged on the field, which you don't often see in cricket, where the umpires had to interfere and stuff like that. But it was a fantastic summer for England. As I said, they should have probably won 3-1 and not drawn the series 2-all. But also, it was great preparation for England to go from that series into the Ashes coming up, because at the Ashes, cricket is the ultimate for an English or Australian cricketer. And, the tough cricket played this summer in our English summer will hopefully stand the team in good stead for when they get to Australia and walk out of the Optus Oval on November 21st.
So picking up on that's I want you to look forward to the Ashes. We'll take a trip down memory lane as well. But there was that slightly unusual. I'm not quite so certain the general public was aware, as South Africa took on Australia for the title of World Cricketing Champions at Lords. That won by South Africa. Remarkable. Bavumba, the captain, has won all 10 of his Test matches, which is pretty remarkable. So we saw a good shot of the Australian side then. Just quickly, just what was the significance of that particular match? And then what does Australia look like? You mentioned the Ashes, England with its sort of Baz ball and sort of can't last 5 days and whatever. Give us an insight into what England can expect going to Australia.
Well, I think it was a great result for South Africa. I was at that game at Lords. It was a tense game over the first few days, but South Africa ended up, getting the runs to win and get over the line. It looked like it was going to be tight at one stage, but you've got to congratulate South Africa the way they played. They handled the pressure of having to knock off a score at the end, and I think. It's great for Test cricket because it was a good game of cricket. Test cricket around the world is under pressure from the white ball game, the T20 competitions all over the world, which are, you know, no luster has disappeared from that format. And Test cricket around the world is, feeling the pressure of that. If you look at South Africa, they're a country that don't play many Test matches nowadays, and to beat Australia in the final of the World Test Champion was a great result for them. Um, I'd like to think that will give credence to some of the other Test playing countries around the world, apart from England, Australia, uh, and India. You know that they call them the big three, and that's mainly because of the finances in the game, and a lot of the other smaller financial countries, in terms of money they generate, really depend on sometimes on Indian television rights to survive. So hopefully that will, increase the importance of Test cricket, because I'd hate to think that format will dilute and disappear, because someone of my generation, we were brought up on tense Test matches over 5 days, and that was really exciting and a real test of character, as a cricketer. Um, I have nothing against T20 cricket. I mean, it's been super popular. It's given, huge riches and finances to the players around the world, especially if you play in the IPL. And every country in the world, and some countries that don't play cricket regularly, have T20 competitions. So I think we can all look back on the summer in England as in the men's team was as a great summer to promote the traditional form of the game.
And obviously, the lot of the best English batsmen score runs at a very quick rate. Take Harry Brook, for example. So if you're an Australian fast bowler, you're going to fancy your chances, aren't you, against these stroke playing Englishmen who smash the ball everywhere? And you said the first test of the Optus Oval is going to be key. Will it be for the Australian fast bowlers to put a marker down to some of these English batsmen?
I think it's difficult to predict what's going to happen. I mean, historically, England don't start that well in Ashes series. We've only won four times in 55 years, 70, 71, 78, 79, 86, 87, and 2010, 2011. They're the only four times that we've taken the Ashes in Australia, in modern times, if you like. Um, Normally, the first match is at the Gabba at Brisbane, and I'm not quite sure why it's not there. It might be something to do with is it the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games or something like that is taking place there in the not too distant future. Um, so I don't think the Australian bowlers will be licking their lips, but they know England have a designated plan to attack. They go on the attack, and they try and force the issue in the matches. Um, I'm not particularly happy with our preparation. Okay, we're having one match versus our own players, the England Lions. That's like the backup team that will be there as well. I don't think that's adequate preparation for an Ashes series, because I think you need to embrace yourself in the Australian style of cricket, hard nosed, competitive, in your face type of cricket. I think you need games against the state sides, two or three games, and maybe Australian A. Well, last time we won in 2010, I was on the coaching staff of England. We beat the two state sides we played, and we nearly beat Australia A. So if you just look at the British Lions, British and Irish Lions, who've just been to Australia, they had nearly a month's preparation before the first Test match, and it paid
That's
dividends
right.
for them. So I'm not happy, and I think they're taking a huge risk by only having one game against your own people as well, which I don't, as I said, I don't think that's adequate. Having said that. England play a certain style of cricket. I think it'd be the Australian bowlers against our batsmen. If we can get enough runs, we'll be in the game. And when people ask me, how do you think the Ashes will go? I think, as I said, the key will be the first game, because if England can play well in the first game, either win or perform well, so they go to the second match at Brisbane level, then I think that increases their chances of maybe winning the series no end. If they go down in the first game, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. But there'll be some good matchups. Ben Duckett has done very well for England opening the batting, but he's very aggressive, plays square of the wicket. Ball generally bounces a lot more in Australia, the Kookaburra ball early on. So that will be a challenge for him. And of course, the Australians will be not short at telling Joe Root that he's not scored 100 in Australia. So you can expect from now, from the beginning of November up to the first day of the first test, the only thing that will lead the sports news is Joe Root in whatever form not scoring 100 in Australia. And he'd be quite key for England because he's the only one. He's a class act. In my opinion, he's got a chance of beating Tendulkar to the most test runs ever if he plays for another 2 or 3 years. But England play round him. He's their glue. He's their rock in the middle. And the expansive game they try to play will depend on him being a solid, like anchor at one end. So there's a lot to play for. I don't think the Australian batting lineup is as secure as it has been in previous years. That all their class bowlers are still there. There's a doubt about Pat Cummins, the captain, great leader, great bowler, being fit. I understand he's got a bit of a knee problem, but that bowling attack has been together for a decade or more, and they've been classed for that decade. So it's going to be a good matchup, and we'll see. England only know one way to play, and that's to attack.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to it, and it'll round off the year nicely. Before we go all the way back into an era where arguably some of the greatest ever cricketers, including yourself, took part. You mentioned the white ball game, and it might be impacting some of the way England's men's batsmen are playing. But the Women's World Cup is ongoing. We've had uh, the women have won the Euros, and the Red Roses won the World Cup. There's a huge amount of growth in women's sport, and obviously the 100 and the franchise, and that's all been caught up in it. So you've got the men and the women's game moving forward very fast. I mean, to just talk about obviously the white ball game, and that's providing huge growth for the women's game, isn't it? And so we've got to welcome that. Where's the balance, do you think, in all of this? Because it's commercial, but it's also staying true to some of the traditions too, isn't it?
Well, I think obviously the girls play very little Test cricket in a series. If you take the Ashes in the UK, the women's Ashes, there's one Test matches. I think there's either three T20s and three 50 over matches. That they don't play much long form cricket. So I think T20 as a professional game has been around since 2003 in our domestic game, and then obviously it's spread around the world, and now it's if not the most popular format. I think the women have benefited by that hugely because the profile that has given them as cricketers, the skills that they've got, and the turned professional. Now we have a team at Essex, and they have the new professional league there, as well as their T20s in internationals. The growth of women's cricket in the UK, and I assume around the world, has been such that all the T20 competitions have women's competitions, which is brilliant. And the opportunity for young girls to get into the game and earn a living at the game as well as coaching and just the profile in schools. Like my granddaughter, who's 15, plays at school. They play cricket there, the girls, and that mirrors itself across the UK. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and their standards and their commitment is improving all the time. The standard of the fielding, the athleticism, the technique, every aspect of the game in the women's game is improving year on year. I can't hear you now. You can hear me.
Sorry, that was me.
Yes.
That it's great. It's great to see that happen, and I think it also changes, of course, the profile of the audience, doesn't it? That people come in for a full day, the back-to-back games, the families come along, and it's much more of a demographic, isn't it? Which I guess is going to just feed the game long term into all the broadcast deals, which there was a lot of traditional broadcasting back in your day, but the new world demands something more, doesn't it? And cricket seems to be moving with those times pretty quickly.
Yeah, and in your sport, Simon, 84,000 people to watch the Women's World Cup final in rugby there the other week.
Phenomenal,
Um,
phenomenal, yeah, and
Phenomenal, and the skill levels, and the entertainment. As I say, is it's just growing. All the time, and that's great to see, because it creates so many spin-offs for lots of other people, lots of other people, women, to play the game. It just promotes the game all down the line, with the families and everything, because it's not just the males who play cricket or rugby now. It is both, genders. So just increases the number of people playing sports. So also increases the enjoyment, because I'm sure you did when you started. We all play these games for enjoyment initially. Some of us are lucky and very privileged to go on and earn a bit of a living doing it and playing professionally. But we all play these games and love these games, because we love sport.
100%. And let's just look back a little bit. I've always professed, even though I played many years international rugby, that the cricket was my passion. It just wasn't good enough, and that's just one of those things. We did actually play against each other. You probably won't remember, in a NatWest game when you didn't score that many runs. I didn't either, but a certain Kenny McEwen scored 70, and you won with many overs to spare. But having a shot at the big time was a great privilege for us. But you look back at your career and talking to someone who perhaps has an ambition to come in and be the best, and you did that, but you started somewhere, and so just give a little insight. Those two things, that sort of, how did you get into it, and how did it kind of start for you? And then talk to us a little bit about that test when you came off with a pair, because a lot of people would have really suffered from that, but you used that as a platform and on you went. So yeah, I'm interested to hear how it all happened for you.
Um, well, I started my sporting career because of my dad, really, because he was a cricketer. He played football for Oxford City as well, soccer that is. Um, but from the time I was born, he and my mum Rose and my sister Brenda, we used to go to cricket. He played for a club in East London called East Ham Corinthians, very low level club, village standard really, every Sunday. And I've been going to cricket since I was born, to be honest, every Sunday. And then as you get a little bit older, you pester the other players to throw you the ball. He taught me how to hold the bat. He taught me how to play. I didn't, and I didn't have any formal coaching till I was about 13 years of age, when Dad took me to the Ilford Cricket School in Ilford, where I came across a guy called Bill Morris, who was an ex Essex player. He was a white Jamaican guy, and he played a bit for Essex in the 50s, and he was coach at the Ilford Cricket School, which was run and owned by Trevor Bailey, who you probably heard of, and a guy called Harold Farragher. And that's when I got my first formal coaching. So I came a traditional route. I played for my school. I only went to a state school, but the junior school played cricket and the senior school played cricket, and they still play cricket at Norlington Road School. They still have a very good cricket team. And I go back there occasionally to see them. And then I played for the district, played for because where I lived in Leytonstone, I played for London schools and I played for Essex schools, because it was sort of on the border, where I live. So I managed to play together. Went on a London schools cricket tour in 1969, aged 15, and that's where I met John Embry, who's still my lifelong sort of best friend. He played for Surrey. We went to East Africa on a tour to Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. So that was back in '69. I left school. I wanted to play cricket. I'd already played one game for Essex second 11 as a wicket keeper, batted number 11, which I weren't that happy about, to be honest. Thought I should have batted number 10, but anyway. But Dad insisted I did an engineering apprenticeship. Okay, so I qualified to be a tool maker. Now, there's a very prominent person in the British government who always claims to be a tool maker, or his father. That's our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Anyway, so I did the apprenticeship. The day I qualified is the day I signed professional for Essex, and I never really went back to that. And that was about 1974. So played for about 27 years. So it's a very traditional route, actually, through the school system, through the young cricketers at Essex, played a few second team games, and then managed to get into the professional game. Because when I signed professional for Essex, the year before in 1973, because of the financial situation of the club was not special, they had 12 professional players. So when I signed, they signed 3 players. So we went up to 15 players, and they had 15 players for the whole season. So you couldn't afford to be injured, to be honest. And if you got injured, they had to get someone out of club cricket basically to play. So, and then I met people like Keith Fletcher, and I learned a lot off of him. And then, I was fortunate to make my Test debut 2 years later. And of course, you mentioned the pair. Quite convenient to have your first Test score in your surname. Okay, you need to note that. Okay, and then it didn't go well, but I played a couple of games, and I didn't really play for 3 years after that. Actually, came back as an opener 3 years later, and then things started to take off for me. And
Was it one of those classic scenarios where you didn't score in the first? I mean, because in rugby it happened all the time. You have one bad game and they kick you out and try someone else. Is that kind of what happened? You didn't score, and so they just left you out for a while, or?
Well, I mean, when you're only having, I don't know, a handful of balls in both innings, you can't really decide whether you're any good or not. I mean, uh, your listeners and viewers might not realise, but the first Test I played, 1975 at Edgbaston, Birmingham, was on what's called an uncovered pitch. Now that doesn't happen in Test cricket now. So what that means is that the pitch is covered, and once the game starts, if it rains, they cover the run-ups, the bowlers' run-ups, but they leave the pitch uncovered, so it gets wet. And of course, what happened is that Mike Denness, our captain, and I'm not. I'm sort of blaming him a little bit bitter. He's not with us now. He was a top man. Came to play for Essex later on in my career, but he's a Kent man. He's a Scotsman, actually. A Scotsman, captain in England. There we are. That's different, isn't it, for a start? And then we had Owen Morgan a bit later, an Irishman, captain England to the first World Cup. There we go. But anyway, so on an uncovered pitch, if you won the toss, okay, you don't care what the pitch looks like, you bat first, okay? Because if you go halfway through the game and it rains, you're going to be on what they call the sticky wicket, if you see what I mean. Now, it doesn't mean that every pitch that gets rain affected is a nightmare to play on, but a lot of them are. Okay, so Australia got 350. We batted for a little while. Then we had the day of the game was rained out. Okay, so the pitch was soaking wet. So we came back on the Monday because there's rest days in Test matches then, which were very, very popular with the players. You played 3 days, then had a rest day, and you played the next 2 days. I think we got bowled out for 100 and 150, I think, in our 2 innings. So we lost comfortably on the rain-affected pitch. So to answer your question, Mike Denness resigned as captain. Tony Greig took over, and I played the next game at Lords. I don't think Tony Greig fancied me as a player too much, and then I didn't come back and play again till 3 years later, 1978. I played a few one-day internationals in 1976, but in Test cricket, I didn't come back till 78 when Mike Brearley was captured. And the difference is,
So
I was opening then, opening the batting then later on.
I do recall that Teddy Gregg made some prediction about making the West Indies grovel or something, and
Yeah,
it
that was
didn't
in
turn out that.
1976. Yeah, it didn't turn out that way. England were the team that were grovelling, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you mentioned some names there. You played in the era. Certainly, let's talk about bowlers for a second, because you played all around the world, and with the heavy run making you made against the best of the best. When you think about Garner and Marshall and Roberts and Patterson and Holding, or in Australia, you obviously had Lilly and Thompson primarily. Who was the bowler that when you came out to bat, you thought, "Wow, I've just got to that this is serious stuff. I'm not too sure I can cope with this."
Well,
Were you? Was there ever
I
one?
think that was most of them actually, but but there are people that stand out. It's the one thing I do want to say about my first test, and it's quite interesting because I say it when I do after dinner speaking. So I was 21 years of age when I made my debut for England. Okay. So possibly 12 years before, I used to play a little cricket game called How's That? All right. Some of your listeners and viewers might have heard of the game. A couple of little rollers you had, like a little game. You had a
Yeah,
scorebook. You would write your
dot
team in the
cricket.
scorebook. Yeah. And you'd roll these rollers and score the runs and you get the wickets and whatever. And you put all the names in the scorebook. Okay. So all the names that when I was about 12, I used to put in the scorebook were all the same people I made my test debut with. Okay. Dennis Amiss, John Edrich, Mike Denness, Keith Fletcher, Tony Gregg, Alan Knott, Derek Underwood, John Snow, Chris Old, and Jeff Arnold. They're pretty much the whole team that I then made my test debut with when I was playing this little game as a kid. So I was very much the odd one out, if you see what I mean. Australia had beaten England comfortably, giving them a real kicking in 74-5. That was Lillian Thompson, obviously, that did that, and they wanted some young blood, and I had started the season well, and I got the call up for the game. So it was it was challenging, but I mean, you've got to take your chances. When you play top level cricket, you play international sport, you've got to grab your chance, but it didn't happen. Going back to your bowlers, right? So in my era, there was a lot of quality, world class fast bowlers on the scene. Now, it would sound quite sort of odd and bitter if I said, name me 10 world class five fast bowlers now. You wouldn't be able to. It's not possible because there isn't. There isn't. But in that era, you got your Dennis Lillies, your Jeffrey Thompsons, your Glenn McGraths, your Merv Hughes, Brett Lee. And I'll go through the West Indies. Or Richard Hadley, Kapil Dev, Imran Khan, Wasim Akram, Wakar Yunis. Then we go to the West Indies. I run out. I run out of time to say all these bowlers: Malcolm Marshall, Michael Holding, Joel Garner, Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, Colin Croft, Andy Roberts. So I didn't think, like you
Yeah,
said there, for any of them, because I think, and you played at the top level, you've got to believe you're going to do well, Simon, haven't you? You've got to go out there believing you're going to do well. You can't go out there thinking, I don't think, thinking, well, I had a terrible game against this guy last time. And, because I think if you think that, you're waiting for it to happen. You've got to believe you're going to do well. So my top fast bowlers, and there's not much to choose between them, would be Malcolm Marshall, number one, Dennis Lilly, number two, probably Wasim Akram, number three. And they're all high class, but all the other names I mentioned wouldn't be far behind them. It's all about backing yourself, isn't it? And getting yourself into the right frame of mind, that to compete. And I think in my career, I always wanted to play as I got into my career. I'm a big believer in evolving yourself. You have to evolve yourself in life. You know, you don't stay the same when you started as you move through. If you're a smart, you don't have to be the best player around. Generally, you have to be the smartest player. If you're a smart player, you can move forward. And I think you have to evolve yourself by trying to improve yourself all the time. And, you know, I think as my career developed, I improved my mental attitude towards my play, my belief in myself, all those sort of things. And I think, I don't know how you felt when you played international rugby, but I think you want to compete. I wanted to compete against the best because, yes, you want to do well for your team. Yes, you want to do well for your country, but you also want to put your skill up against the best and see how you match up. That is one of the things I think every sportsman should want, because you don't want to avoid the best. Put it like that, because I don't think that's the right frame of mind. You got to challenge yourself against the best, and certainly in that era, well, we're talking through my career, the sort of late '70s, all through the '80s. And the '90s, there was plenty of great fast bowlers and great spin bowlers as well. So they were all very challenging. And of course, if you do well against the best, it's more satisfying.
And so you did. And I think you're right that all you ever want to do, and I remember, running out to Twickenham, you just wanted to leave your best out there as well. And you wanted to play against the best and you wanted to play your best against them as well. So that, those missed opportunities, where you go in front of a lot of people and you're achieving your goal of running out to the field just as the first point. But then what do you do about that? So it's not just about being there, it's about performing. And I know, I'm sure you've been asked many times, is it the 333, the record score at Lords, after which you named Wine Brand? We'll come on to that. But is that what sticks in your mind? Or is it the gritty innings of, what innings sticks in your mind most? Was it the Marathon 300 or the 100 I know you scored against all four West Indies firing at you and no one else was scoring any runs? Or is there one innings that sticks in your mind, or is it over such a long?
No, not really. I mean, to get big scores is great, and it influences the game. And what I say when someone asks me a question, a bit like you just have now, is I think what you should remember as a sports person is that when your performance, okay, so if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, okay, and when your performance makes a difference in the contest. Okay, that's what you should remember. To me, it's not about the numbers, the number of runs, the number of tries, the number of tackles, the number of wickets, number of goals you score as a soccer player. It's when your performance helps your team get over the line. That's what you should remember. You know, when your contribution makes the telling difference in a game, that's what you should play for. Not just to score big scores. And obviously, if you get a big score in cricket or whatever, that helps your team to win the game. So in that 300, we won the game. So that was a major contribution. And another innings I played maybe in '91 in the Headingley, when we got 154 and we won the game on a low scoring game. I think that's the satisfying thing, in sport. In that's what you play for, is to, as you said, leave everything out on the pitch, give it your best, and look yourself in the mirror afterwards and say, "Well, I couldn't have done any better."
And that has got such a correlation to life in general, to business. There can be plenty of people sitting at the top of their profession, but it's the difference that you make. And I think that for me comes across very strongly, that what can you do that causes an outcome that we can all look back on and say, well, I was part of that team effort. And that's what sport is after all. And it's for other people to make the judgments in the years to come,
Absolutely.
which they've certainly done with respect to you. And I think the other thing is the value you can bring through your power, and the career that you've had as a sports person. and I want to cover some of the things off field because you're very central to the PCA, the Professional Cricketers Association, and you have your foundation, Support Professional Cricketers Trust. Tell us a bit about that, because obviously someone like you with all of those years of experience and performance, for you to take that lead is incredibly important for players. So give us a bit of an insight into what that actually entails.
Okay, so I retired from playing 1997. I was an England selector at the time, even when I was playing for Essex, believe it or not. I wasn't playing for England then. I'd retired from playing from England, and I went to coach at Durham for a few years, not full time, part time. Then I went back to coach Essex in 2002. Myself and my partner Julia run a dinner at Lord's. And we raised quite a bit of money on 60 people in one of the rooms, the committee room, dining room at Lord's. Anyway, we did that for one of our ex-players, John Stevenson. He had a benefit year or testimonial. And then when I came back as coach to Essex, I said to Julia, let's run that dinner again. And with the money, we will send a couple of players over to Australia to the Paul Terry Oz Cricket Academy in Perth. Okay, they can spend the winter, improve their game, come back, spend about 3 months each there, which we did. So that's where it started, and really starting the foundation, or the Graham Gooch Scholarship Fund, it was called then, but now it's called the Graham Gooch Foundation. My motivation was very simple: to put something back into the game that had served me so well. And a lot of people helped me in my career, like they probably did in your career. A lot of people give you a lot of assistance down the line. So it was my small way of putting something back into the game. Now, we're still going 23 years later, and we raise millions of pounds, and we support all sorts of things like the Essex Cricket Academy, the things I've already mentioned with the Professional Cricketers Trust players who fall on hard times. We support gambling awareness courses for young cricketers, alcohol awareness courses for young cricketers, all these sorts of things, which is, trying to help youngsters find their way in the game. So we've taken a lot of inspiration from that, and we just, people are very, very generous in terms of giving money, and we try and, help present, past, and future players in various projects and things like that. So it's a very simple sort of motivation, and it's not really down to what we do. It's the generosity of the public who support the fundraising activities we have. So as I said, we do that mainly in our area of East Anglia, but not exclusively. And obviously the Professional Cricketers Association and Trust, um, do similar things, with educational courses and stuff like that for players, to prepare for life after the professional game and stuff like that, and also promoting the game in general, but both for the girls and for the boys at a young age. So yeah, I think it's just a nice way of putting something back into the game.
I think there's also, and it's certainly the case in rugby, is that when you're one injury away, or from never playing the game again, and for example, or you get deselected or whatever, and people assume things just carry on, but they don't, do they? Particularly when, if you were a professional cricketer for many years, but the money was never like it is now, where you get these
No.
auctions, some of these young players picking up, I don't know, seven figures, IPL and all the rest of it. So when you stopped playing, you had to reassess and go again in another way. And every person, and even someone of your stature, has to do that. Every cricketer has to do that, because you can't carry on forever. You got the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think there's something that is appreciated enough within the sport? Obviously, you're doing your bit, but outside the sport as well.
I don't know. I don't know of any other player I mean, obviously players that support charities, but I don't know of anyone else who like runs their own charity for the aims that I've just put out to you. I mean, in cricket, it was a very and still is a poor relation when it comes to a lot of other sports. So a domestic county cricketer will earn a decent wage now, but they're going to have to find something else to do afterwards. That's for sure. If you play international cricket now and you play franchise cricket around the world, that might not be the case. If you see what I mean. So. I think players have to prepare for the future. If they're smart, they prepare for the future, but a lot don't. And as you say, a lot go out of the game possibly through injury, possibly they get released, they don't get retained because they're not good enough, or they just haven't made it, or sometimes a club has a lot better players. You know, it's not that you've done anything wrong, but they have better players than what they consider you are. So yeah, it doesn't go on forever. So as I said, I was very lucky. People supported me, gave me a lot of help along the way, and it was a good way of putting something back. Having said that, I can honestly say when we started in 2002, I didn't expect to be doing it still 23 years later. That's for sure. You know, we never ever expected it to get quite as big as it has done. You know, and we don't employ anyone. Myself and Julia have basically done it all ourselves. So and we'll
Well,
continue
it's
to do it. It's a bit pared down now in what we do in the fundraising sort of thing. But we still do a bit of fundraising, and we still um, do our best to support people.
well, it's a huge credit that you continue to do that, and I want to flip back a little bit. We're almost out of time, but I couldn't resist asking you what it's like. I mean, obviously, I know some of these individuals like Beefy Botham and Anna Lamb and David Gower, just to say three. You toured all around the world with these guys, you know, and they were all phenomenal cricketers in their own rights. So you played in a very special era, but they were all significant characters. Let's just leave it
Mhm.
understated. Um, what was it like being in a changing room on tour with these guys? I mean, because they played hard on and off the field, did they not? Um, Give us a memory
Uh,
or two
yeah, you could
without
say that. I'm
breaking
sure
any.
you. I'm sure you had plenty of teammates who did the same as well. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing about professional sport now, actually, which is quite strange, isn't it? Academies have come into professional sport in a big way, both for the boys and girls, rugby, cricket, football. They've all got academies, okay, which are a good thing for the development of these sports people, okay. But name me some characters who play sport now. There's not many, okay, because I think the academy system actually spits out the sort of left field characters who played the game maybe in the era that we played, if you see what I mean. You know, I gave a test debut to Philip Tufnell, okay, 1990 at the MCG, okay, and I soon learnt that there was one massive advantage when Philip was bowling, is that he couldn't be fielding, could he? Because you know he's one of the laziest players I've ever played with. But you know he was good technical, and he's done well for himself. But you know he was a fun guy, you know. And Ian, well, I mean, yeah, all the stories you've heard about Ian, a lot of them would be true, obviously. But you know, even though Ian, you know, would burn the candle a bit at both ends, you know, would have a good time, have a good party, have a few beers and whatever, he would always turn up when the game came and he put in 100%. No excuses about what happened off the field, but always be right on it at 11 o'clock in the morning. That's for sure. I don't think I can give away any state secrets on a media show, so to speak. But let's say not sure what they got up to would be acceptable now.
But of course, the in the world, I'm not going to remember. I toured Australia two or three times, and the media end up being in the bar with you, you know, buying the beers and all the rest. And there was no social media to rumble you. So
Yeah.
the genuine what goes on tour stays on tour absolutely applied. But as you say, you had to turn up the next day. You need whether it be a top training game or a big match or whatever, and that was like get up to what you want to get up to. But if you're not on top form, then we'll come down hard on you. And at the end of it, that group of players I mentioned, stood up against some of the fastest bowlers consistently for years on end and scored the runs. And in Beefy's cases, took the wickets. So you bowled a bit of wobbly
Yeah.
medium pace, didn't you, by memory?
Yeah,
Take many wickets, or
military medium they would call it. Yeah, military medium, dibbly dobblies. Yeah, yeah. I mean, look. I
I mean,
mean,
all the batsmen.
I remember Ian's motto. One of them was, "You don't come back the same day you go out." Right. Okay, which takes a little bit of thinking about. Okay, and another captain I played with, and I'm not going to name him, when asked by the media that their new motto was, what was it? Wine, women, and song, and his answer was, "We don't sing much." Okay, so you can work that one out for yourself. Okay.
Well,
um,
listen,
yeah, but I mean, look,
the
we played in that sort of era. They played it tough on the field, right? But it was, say, if you want to call it, less professional off of the field, if you like. They had a good time. Don't think that, even when I was coaching England 10 years ago, I don't think that's quite the same now. Um, so the guys don't participate in alcohol so much. That the fitness and the way they look after themselves is completely different. Yes, they would have a bit of a binge if they won a match and what like that afterwards, but generally it's not the same sort of discipline, as it used to be, if you see what I mean.
No, that's fair across all sports, really, and certainly applies to rugby. The and you mentioned the wine side of things. You and Beefy have gone into wine in a little bit as a passion. Lammy and David Gower, I think, just consume the product rather than anything else. But
They're
is
the end user. Yeah.
the end user? I mean, you didn't go into wine to supply them, obviously, but just you've always obviously had a passion for wine, and I know that because we
I,
deal
I
sporting
think I
wines.
think
But
at the beginning the answer was no to that, because when you're a professional cricketer, and you're playing in South Africa, you're playing in Australia, you're playing in New Zealand, you're playing in all these countries where wine production is very high profile. So I remember in Adelaide, in Test matches, as I said, in the early days, used to have a rest day in Test matches. So I can't remember the days we played in Australia. Obviously, over in England, it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and then you'd have Sunday would be the rest day. In Adelaide, we'd all go down to Yalumba Winery on the rest day of a test in Adelaide. Both teams would go to Yalumba Winery. They'd have a big barbecue, participate in the wine, play a few games of tennis, where I think Blooming Tomo got injured once. That was the norm, if you see what I mean. I can't imagine that happening nowadays.
no, well, I think the story goes that Beefy and dear Bob Willis, now sadly departed, but the story goes they got into wine because they wanted to teach the Australians how to make wine. Um, and I
How
don't
to
suppose
drink wine and
historically.
how to make it.
Uh, this, I'm not going to say that you're going to teach the French how to make wine, because obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of years. But your 333 wines from the Languedoc are extremely tasty. So more power to your elbow. And I
Well,
think we are with
Simon, I've played cricket against France, actually, and Portugal,
French cricket.
actually.
Yeah.
Well, no, not French cricket. No, proper cricket in a place called Chateau de Trois, just outside Paris. Yeah, not sure how many Frenchmen were playing. To be honest, they were mainly expats, Asians or Australians or Kiwis. But I did play against France, and I played against Portugal quite a bit at the Porto cricket and croquet club. That's it. Yeah, yeah. But
Been there much.
I'm sure you
I'm
have.
sure many good is consumed before, during, and after the match. But we're out of time, Graham, and you have to go to the PCA Awards. And so it remains for me, firstly, to congratulate you on your incredible career. Secondly, the amazing work you've done post career, because that's super important, and you're giving back so much. So I think that is a real credit to you. And long may the stories continue as they will. We look forward to the Ashes. I think it's going to be pretty tight, as you say, and we'll all be having a glass of wine alongside it at some point. So
Sure.
thank you for your time. And that's it from Hallers Playbook. See you again next time.
Thank you.